For the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, Nigeria has been having challenges that are beckoning and waiting for answers and solutions. That is why we are bringing to you our program, State of the Nation. And this is going to come up on our flagship program this morning on ITV. I am hereby inviting you to join me, Bola Bakare, your host, on State of the Nation, so that we can hasten the motions that brings national development. It's going to be a regular basis on Tuesdays. Make it a date with me. I'll be there waiting for you, and then we shall discuss Nigeria on an holistic level.
Welcome back to your lofty program, State of the Nation, where we hasten the motions for national development. And as the word goes, when it comes to national development, it's a collective fact. It involves you and I. And that is where whenever anything happens, whenever a topical issue crops up, we should all be interested. We should not delude ourselves that if anything happens that is untoward in Nigeria, if it doesn't concern you in the immediate, you should be less concerned. If you're not concerned today, tomorrow, it will be at your doorstep. That is why whenever a topical issue crops up, we need to talk about it. We need to share ideas. We need to be able to form opinions about the next line of action. The next line of action might not necessarily be the state government or the federal government. It might be you that will be the next line of action. And that is why this morning we shall be talking about what happened in Ondo State, where over 700 kids and youths, for all I care, they were kidnapped and kept under a church, which becomes a case of kidnapping in the name of God, which is quite unsuitable, unbecoming. But the situation here is, with me in the studio is my brother, Cosmos Uzodimma. My brother, I would like to welcome you to the studios.
Thank you very much, Bola.
And thanks for being with us on a regular basis. Though that is by popular demand, though.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate our listeners.
Our listeners and viewers out there.
Viewers, yes.
The idea, what we're talking about this morning is, from my little intro, it's totally unbecoming for a normal human being to pack over 700 kids and put them in a bunker. I'll call it a bunker or a basement underneath the church, and tell us Nigerians that he's keeping them there for Jesus Christ's second coming. It seems we're having a lot of mistakes in our society. We're having a lot of mad people at the end, mad people that have access to people. For God's sake, let us even start from your own angle. What do you think about the man in question and the children? What do you think about the man? Let's talk about the man first. Let's try and walk into his brain.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Bola. It's the vibe of the times. When people are hungry, when people are ignorant, and when people are poor. You easily...
Those are the indices of a bad economy.
Yes. You begin to see a lot of things, begin to see and hear a lot of things. That's why you could see 77 people, about 22 children and 52 adults. They were bunked together in a bunker, and that they are preparing for the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And you could also see the aspect of Stockholm syndrome there. Even when the man was arrested, I hear that some of them have refused to eat.
For arresting the man?
That the man was arrested until he is released, that they will not eat. Stockholm syndrome is psychology is really an issue. It's a play here. It's when there's no job, when people are not busy, when people are sitting down, I think the wires of the brain begin to touch.
And then you need somebody to wipe to fuse it back.
Easily susceptible to all kinds of things. That's I think that's what's at play here.
Okay, okay. You see, because let's now look at it. We're trying to look at it from the psychological aspect that say, okay, people are out of work, people are idle, they're not doing anything, there is a disconnect in their brains, and then there happens to come a man who is putting a connect back to their brains, but in a negative, in a negative space.
Yes.
But the thing is, why is this case? It's not with us, because we are talking about 77 people in a bunker.
Yes.
I am talking about the people that are not in bunkers. The people that will gather to a man who calls himself a man of God. And he will be telling them they shouldn't worry, that they are going to become overnight millionaires. In as much as they pray to God and they believe in him. We're having loads and loads of that. I have had situations where some people will go to religious centers. And the man will tell them not to worry. Not to worry, you will become a millionaire.
These issues. It's a case of abuse of everything. We took democracy, we abused it. We took education, we abused it. We took religion, and we have abused it.
On a large scale. On
a large scale. Everything we touch, we don't have a Midas touch. I think it's reverse Midas.
Rather than going forward, you go backwards.
Whatever we touch, we destroy. These are the things we're talking about. And, everything, fundamentally, there should be proper educational system. And then, number two, let the economy, and in any case, it's not been only here. If you go back in history, in the Jonestown case.
Yeah, in Guyana.
Guyana. In 1978, in which 778 people, committed mass suicide. After that, came the one in the United States, the Heaven's Gate case.
That's right.
In which 39 people in 1998.
1998.
In which 39 people, in which 39 people, committed mass suicide again. In Uganda, it's 778 about the Society for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments.
That's right.
They also had the same situation. And in Nigeria till today, we had the case of a man like Ezugo, Reverend King.
Reverend King that burnt his church member.
Bought his church member. And there are also signs on the ground.
Even the case of Metatsine in the north.
Metatsine in the north, And you can imagine, for instance, the case of, you have little signs which need to be checked. Like my Mbaka, who the bishop, pronounced a discipline on him, and his members went on rampage. So the issue is, are you following
the man, or are you following the scriptures?
Following the scriptures? So is the bishop in the Catholic Church is superior to the
Reverend Father.
The Reverend Father. And if he makes a decree, the church should listen.
Make sure it's enforced.
Make sure it's enforced. But members went on rampage. You can imagine those things. This is how it starts. Because even the Society for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments in Uganda, it's a splinter group from the Catholic Church.
Can you imagine that?
It's a splinter group for the Catholic Church. They were, doing adoration of the Virgin Mary, they were doing all these things, until it began to go off course. It began to go off grid. And that is why it's the responsibility of the leadership of the church to constantly monitor the priests under them. But the problem, there are some, so we have a little bit of problem here in that, where the Christian church is susceptible to so many people splintering, splinter groups.
That's right.
A pastor, in fact, there are cases in which somebody is a pastor in Abuja, you post the pastor to maybe Kogi, he says he's not going, and starts his own church. And when he has only 2 or 3 people there, he's desperate to manipulate the scriptures so that make it
sweet enough for people to come
so that
in,
people
and
can come in and tell them, tomorrow you're
going to become a millionaire.
See what happened in Kubwa. the gentleman in Cuba that is being rumored that killed a girl, that he and the son killed a lady. You're not aware?
That's right. I'm aware.
And they butchered the girl, packed the girl in body bags, and went to remand. And that happened before my eyes. Because while I was in Cuba some 25 years ago, I witnessed when this man was brought in from Abakaliki by the General Overseer of the Assemblies of God Church. And when now he brought in a strange, theology into the Assemblies of God system. And the man that brought him, the regional overseer or general overseer, came to the church. When he had a wind of what took place, he came to the church and asked him to return, sent him back to Abakaliki where he was coming from. And the youths went on rampage. They said, no, he wasn't going. So
we like him.
We like him. So the youth sponsored him. Some people gave him land. Some of my friends gave him land. I told them, you are trading on a treacherous path, on a muddy area. The church had pronounced discipline on this man. Instead of you people helping him to heed the counsel of the superior
and fall back
minister
in line.
And fall back in line, you all are pulling money out to give him money to run away from the church and start his own church. And, many people, it has been 25 years since then, but look at what has happened. Look at what has happened.
It's even a bad case because this is what we are seeing.
Yes.
What do we know that has transpired over time that has been covered, that we didn't see?
The bird will always come home to roost.
Of course.
The bird has all that disobedience that took place about in the mid-90s. Look at where we are now. Look at where it has taken him. So, if this gentleman had been, if the youths of the Assemblies of God Church that split with him,
and then went with him,
if they had enabled him to obey the instructions of the superior authority, we wouldn't have gotten where we are today with this man.
Thank you. On that note, I like it because that's why our viewers like you, because you run inferences that are personal.
Yeah.
You don't believe in hearsay.
Yes.
Let's look at it from the perspective of old Nigerians, which you and I are.
Yes. No, I'm not old. You are old. I'm a young man.
With your gray hair.
people buy the gray hair.
You bought this.
I bought this. I dyed it.
But the essence of what we're saying here is simple, and that is, we've seen this over the ages, over decades.
Yes.
Why haven't we been able to fashion out solutions to it? You see, one thing I don't like.
Yeah.
I am a spiritual person.
Yes.
I believe in God. I worship God.
Yes.
But from my own angle of religious worship, I don't want to say it so that people don't think I'm biased.
Yes.
There is one word there that is conversant, that is sacrosanct. It is only God that knows who is serving him.
Yes.
So the element of you believing in somebody to the extent of becoming a robot does not apply.
Yeah.
Where I'm driving at is, what part does the state play? Before I go into that question, I know the state does not play any part when it comes to religion. That's why we have problem with religions. But I believe it is high time the state plays a part in religion. When this man started out, nobody was interested. Yes. He picked up kids. The kids are fighting for him. When your man, the influence he ran for us, when he started out, nobody cared. The Lord tried to get across to him. The kids were fighting. When my Tatsine started out, nobody felt anything until he became a terror in Kano, and then brought in the army to flatten him.
Yes.
Jim Jones started in Guyana in 78, like you ran the influence to. He gathered people and started telling them Jesus Christ is coming. Fine, you can listen to Jesus Christ is coming. But the funny thing is, the people were docile. 700 people to line up straight to drink cyanide will be at least half a kilometer of line.
Yes.
And this man ran away from the U.S. before he went to Guyana. The law in the U.S. were after him. That was why he ran away from the U.S. to Guyana.
Yes.
What I'm saying in essence is, shouldn't our government be more interested in all these anomalies in the name of God?
Yeah, this is, government tried, but they went the wrong way. For instance, the Karma laws, the Karma Act, and all the rest of them. These are one of the things we believe they should. Before you do such a thing, it must be a committee of the stakeholders.
Yeah, trustees.
Trustees. They should bring the committee, they should allow, the church to set up committees or councils that will control religious excesses. Like bring the Catholic Church, bring the Orthodox evangelicals, bring the Pentecostals, bring the African Reformed churches, set up a committee. Rather than government isolating itself.
They should be involved.
Rather than government isolating itself and say we are making a law to control, the faith. Because we have we are running a democracy where there is freedom of expression.
Of course, yes.
A freedom of religion,
worship.
But then those freedom must be conducted with responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we do it? Get the stakeholders involved. Because we copy things, we copy wrongly. We are very dictatorial. In the America we are trying to copy, I'm absolutely sure that before government does something, it must be a committee of concerned persons. If they will now come and say, let's know your theology, so that Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria should be able to have a committee backed by law that will say, no, this is not, they will say, for instance, that is the foundation of Christianity. When we talk about the Nicene Creed.
Absolutely.
The Nicene Creed didn't just come from the air. It was when there was this excesses. There was the Arian heresy. There were so many heresies. And then Constantine in 324 or thereabout, AD, he said, look, there's a flurry of theology going here and there.
That will not augur well for the state.
Let's come in and state out what we believe.
Just like the same way we have a constitution that guides us, let there be something that will guide them.
That is why we brought the Nicene Creed. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, the only Son of our God. When they now set it up. So that became the spine of Christianity. So anybody who goes out of those that creed, it's not a Christian church, it's a cult.
Of course.
So that whatever they do is not consistent with the Christian faith. Like the man in assembly, the man who said he was in the Freedom Church in Cuba. He wasn't practicing Christianity. And there are many other people that are not practicing Christianity. And for instance, what the Bishop of Enugu Onaga has done about Mbaka is now, thank God that Mbaka obeyed. That shows he is a Catholic. But if he went out and said, no, I don't obey, then you know that he has been.
Honestly, even if he falls out of the Catholic Church, he will have a very strong followership that will go with him outside.
Yes,
but thank God he is being reasonable enough to
accept.
To accept and then
to humble himself at the feet of the supervising bishop.
That's good.
Yes.
But at the same time, we're still looking at the involvement of government.
Yes.
I know government is going to say, that's a no-go zone. Religion is very touchy in Nigeria. We have about two of them, the two majors. Yeah. It's touchy. If you do this, the other one will say, this is wrong. If you do this here, that is wrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'll tell you this. In the case of Machasine, it was more of I won't like to call it Islam, because Islam does not do that.
Yes,
but
they were Boko Haram we're talking about.
Boko Haram started out, they used the light of Islam to commit all those atrocities in the name of money. Let's talk about it. Yes. It's greed and money that is making them do it. He said the same applies here when it comes to Christianity. I have seen people beg me for 200 naira. I said, where are you going? He said he's going to church. 200 naira will not take you to church. He said, no, it's going to be maybe 50 naira or 100 naira. And what are you going to do with the other 100 naira? You're going to give that 100 naira in the name of God to a church. I am not saying you shouldn't do that. But I believe one thing, that if you as a Christian will have to copy Jesus Christ was not riding in a limo. The best he could do was a donkey. And then you will go to church these days. You will see your pastor wearing a $10,000 suit. And he'll still be telling you, he has a jet, he has two. He will be telling you to drop your own 200 naira.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people, what comes to that, a number of them are, you know, thank God that sometime like Creflo recently has, beginning to dial back some of his teaching. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, Creflo has come in to say, look, dialing it back. And Ben Hinn also, sometime last year.
Yeah, he said something that he has been preaching things that
he
were
began to dial it back.
That may recant somehow.
That shows you that there is a power of the Holy Spirit. And that where you have all these problems, where you have faith, there is always, that's always the genuine thing.
Of course.
You know, but what I will keep saying is governments should not make laws without appropriate consultation.
Of course.
Why we're saying government should get involved. You know, but in terms of, it's a free will gift. If I don't even have a problem with, you know, I'm a Catholic, and to God's glory, my Pope doesn't have a jet, even though he's the Pope of a global organization. But I don't have any problem. If you know, like there are billionaires in the church, and there are people, they say, okay, because of the way our work is, we need to fly jets. I don't have a problem with it. Because during the time of Christ, you know, things evolve over time. But where it is a problem is the fundamental thing of the church is care. Where the jet you are going to ride is going to affect your job of love and charity.
It will affect it. A jet is expensive.
It begins fundamental, that you are now milking the poor in order to live the life of a Nabal. You know, the Indian billionaires.
Yeah,
And, you know, but then, you know, I believe, but these issues, the problem, I'm more concerned with, you know, the tenets of worship. If a church is rich, you know, because if we begin to talk about jet, Reverend Fathers, I mean, pastors flying jets, then we begin to talk about, you know, so many things. Even we begin to scrutinize shoes. Even we begin to scrutinize the pen you're using. And before you know it,
it has blown out of proportion.
It goes, everything, you know, we go out of.
But the thing is, another point of inference that I want to run is this.
Yes.
You and I probably went to schools that were run by missionaries,
yes.
mission schools.
Yes.
And we paid next to nothing.
Yes.
The state will give them a large swathes of land because they know that it's for education, for free. They build all those bungalows for us. We have good teachers and the rest of it, and we are the best of the education system. I can boast about that. The best of education system. And then at the same time, you will find these people, based on the church's money, the contributions you've taken of them, you can't even put up a school. And when you put up a school, you take the tuition out of their reach.
These are truths. These are the truths. I belong to one in which we contributed, and not then, I mean, we contributed, and well, we can't have access to it. And if it was so, my father, who were products of missionary schools, and myself, by the time we're getting up, yes, the government college Umahi where I attended, it was founded by an Anglican Reverend minister from London. But even though government asked him to come, but they asked him to come and build set up such schools. It's among the 3 schools that the colonial government did, like Barewa College, which was Government College Zaria, Government College Ibadan, King's College Lagos, and then Government College Umahi. But the issue they had in Government College Umahi, it had a missionary foundation. And then, like you said, we paid little or nothing. A lot of things were subsidized by government of the day. And this church, I think the rot in the society started. That law, where immediately after the Civil War, government took over all the schools.
And made it mess
Immediately they took over all the schools. They removed the spiritual content of it.
That's a good one.
They removed the spiritual content of the school system, and then they made a mess of it. And that is why I look at today, At a point in time, Anambra State was coming almost 5th or 4th. But immediately a reform came in Anambra State that sent back the churches, the schools to the churches. Anambra today is coming number 1. The Anambra we were always talking about that, we had cases of boys drop out in school, and in Anambra State,
going into trading and the rest
going
of
into
it.
trading. Today, Anambra has beaten Imo State. Mbakwe said something that education was the number 1 industry in Imo State. But the successive government we've had in Imo State has killed education. But fundamentally, is the fact of the absence of reform. That federal government reform that took away schools from missionaries. I believe the only way we can reform the educational system is to allow the spiritual content to return schools back to the missionaries that had them, so that there was this healthy competition. In the East, you had Dennis Memorial Grammar School, which was the Anglican school, competing with CKC Onisha, competing with Catholic. CIC Enugu, which is Catholic. In my place, you had another school. You had Madonna High School, and which is Catholic school. None of them, you see Assemblies of God Evangel. That was a school, Evangel High School, belonging to Assemblies of God. So the churches were doing their best to ensure that they brought out quality people.
I like what you just said. Yes. I like what you just said, because you used one word that I want our viewers to keep at the back of their minds. It said spiritual content. The spiritual content he is talking about here is multifaceted. Because it is the same spiritual content that the man will sell to his followers that will make him do negative things.
Yes.
But those days, the spiritual content was there to guide you and keep you within the space and lane of God.
Yes.
Whatever your religious belief is. That is the essence of it, and that is what we are losing. Before I let you go, I would like you to fuse that element of that language, which I like very much, the spiritual content.
Yeah.
How do we factor in the spiritual content with what the government would do? How we can kind of midwife. It's difficult for us to say we want to midwife worship centers and religions. It's difficult. But if we don't do them, we'll start having situations like Jim Jones and this man in Ondo State. How do we kind of bring things down to a normalcy? Because if we don't, we are in trouble.
Yeah.
And if people, there is a word that if people like you don't talk, there is more trouble. So let us share your own insights.
Yeah.
Along all these 4 parameters.
Yes, number 1, that nothing works until you walk it.
Of course, yes.
It has to take you and I. And what we are doing here today is part of it. To let, I went to, when I did my NYSC in Lishan Raymond, there was this school. There is this school there which finally metamorphosed into Babcock University.
Yeah,
then it was a seminary school of the Seventh-day Adventist school, Seventh-day Adventist church. And because Catholic Church is kind of not very everywhere ubiquitous in the West, so the closest church I could attend was the Seventh-day Adventist church. And the being Catholic was attending the Seventh-day Adventist church. I listened to a message. The man of God then preached in the university, that campus, said, some people don't think. They will rather depend on the thinking of others.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So we must make Nigerians think rather than depend on the thinking of others.
Of course.
Like you have said, read your Bible, read your Quran, and use the fundamental, operational principle and interpret it in the context of the mind of God. The mind of God is love, charity, peace, and community welfare.
Thank you very much. You've already heard that, and the last bit there was love. Give it to me again. Love, charity, peace, and community development. Because that is the only way we can go. And another word I want to give to you is, he said one thing, as Nigerians, think. Don't test the waters with both feet. Think. Because that is God has given you brains. Think. Don't let a man tell you what is wrong. and then you buy it in the name of God. Because at times they kidnap and do bad things in the name of God. One program is not enough to tidy up topical issues. But at the same time, we would like to say thank you to our guest here, Mr. Cosmas.